To the morning show here on Arise News. Joining me now is Aaron to have a conversation with our special guest, Godwin Kienka, a veteran tennis, well, should I say you are even a legend in Nigeria here.
All right.
Aaron, you introduce him.
Okay, of course, Godwin Kienka, a former player, a journalist, tennis umpire, coach, and now promoter and developer of the game of tennis in Nigeria. In his formative years as a player, Kienka was once rated as the most improved tennis player in the country. That was in the days of Unduka Odizo, Daniel Imotine, and not forgetting Tony Momo, Sadiq Abdullahi, John Atiomo, to mention but a few. And Godwin Kienka later became a tennis umpire officiating at Grand Slam level later on as a journalist covering Grand Slam events before joining the coaching line and churning out great tennis talents like Clara Odofia, and later as a promoter of the game, organizing tournaments under the International Tennis Academy banner, which is still on strong after many years. Welcome to the show this morning.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yes. You've been in this business for so long, and you've devoted your time and energy to building up tennis in Nigeria. But when you look back, do you feel that it's been worth the effort?
Yes, without a doubt, it's been worth every time, every energy that we've spent over these past 30 years or so. I think that we've given a lot of young Nigerian boys and girls the opportunity not just to make a living or to get a skill in a sport that will help them stay away from negative stuff, but most of them have gotten scholarships to universities abroad, America, Canada, the UK and all that. Most of them have become coaches or great players in many countries. We have like 10, 12 of tennis players who didn't make it to the pro circuit, who are coaching in academies abroad, and hopefully we'll come back with those skills to help Nigeria, and they're making good money. So in every way, we have put tennis along with other stakeholders and other resource persons, other clubs, schools, programs to make sure that tennis is out there as one of the major sports in Nigeria.
All right, we've been doing a lot for tennis at the grassroots level. And looking at how things and the progress that has happened, we know you're getting a lot of traction right now. But looking at the current ATP ranking, South Africa's Kevin Anderson is 6th in the world. When will we get a Nigerian to be in the top 100?
The way I answer that is 5 years ago, Britain, with all the money they make from Wimbledon and all, but I mean, the Wimbledon budget is probably equal to the Nigerian budget, the entire Nigerian budget, just Wimbledon alone, as an organization, is probably richer than Nigeria. But they didn't produce any top player until Murray came along. Okay. If you take Africa, the only countries that have been doing great to some extent relatively are Egypt, Tunisia, and maybe Morocco. But South Africa has been out there. And after the Wayne Ferreira years, it took a while for Anderson to come through. But the point I'm making is that the structure and the system and the standards were not there. During the Odizo years, during our time, I mean, it was just Odizo that was up front. You could mention like 10 names, but what's 10? Serbia, for instance, has close to 100 players on the circuit doing really well, and it's less than Lagos State. Okay, so the point we're making is that it's very important, not just for tennis, but in Nigerian sports, to build a structure and a system and a standard that will help develop the sport and make sure that you're producing a pipeline. You have a pipeline that produces talent that will eventually become top ATP players. Okay, that is what we've done. So if we've had the junior circuit, which has been on for 10 years, and we've had players like Moses Michael, Sylvester Manuel, Mary Love has just come through that
Okay.
program, and she's at the Nick Bollettieri Academy, which is, of course, the bastion of tennis academies in the world. And if you come through that and Nick Bollettieri tells you you have it, then in the next 3-4 years, we should be looking at having a top 50, top 40 player in the world, which would be a great start. NJ McLeod is also there. So we're doing well with the girls, and they're in the right age, like 16. The boys are coming through.
Not, as they always want to tell me it, not football age, but the right age.
No, the right age,
It's the
because
right age.
what we have achieved with the ITA junior circuit is that we've had a very rigorous screening method, and a lot of nearly all 90% sure, 90 to 95% sure that we have the right ages.
And most of these efforts, they are personal efforts, private initiatives. I know you have support from the corporate sector in many instances. Nduka Odizo is also doing something. Sadiq Abdullah is talking about giving back. The same with, I think, Imonite and all that. How much support do you get from the Nigerian government at state and federal levels?
Yes, I'm glad you asked that question. I'm one for private sector-driven sports architecture. The government, yes, in terms of infrastructure, etc., can come in, but sports is a strictly private sector-driven business, okay, it's or concern. The mistake we make here is that because government money is no one's government, and there is a tendency for the sports managers from the government side to hone in on government money, because then they can do whatever they like with it. There's no serious injection to the right targets for government money. So the point I'm making is that sports is a private-driven concern. All over the world, sports has succeeded because it's been more of private initiative. So it's a big mistake, for instance, to have government, running football clubs, state governments running football clubs, state governments, these are things that the private sector will drive if we have the right people. First they need trust. First you must deliver. And the reason we're succeeding with the private sector is because they can depend on us. Okay, so we probably have more tournaments than the government concerns. It's either states, associations, or federal, the federal body or something, because we've gained the trust of the private sector. So
could you also be saying this because of your experience with Clara Udofia, the top 50 rank, or is it top 600? And then government came in at some point, and well, I hope they didn't destroy her career. What happened?
Yes, they did. They did destroy her career, but that is why we're saying that there are two myths in Nigeria: that lack of funds and lack of facilities. I'll come to the Clara bit, but to quickly say that there are countries, we have more tennis courts, for instance. Let's just keep to tennis now. We have more tennis courts in Lagos alone than they have in the whole of Serbia. We have more tennis courts here than they have probably in Czech Republic, that is in Lagos alone, that from Czech Republic that is producing the Kvitovas and all those great players. Okay, in terms of money, we have several billion dollar companies in Nigeria than we have in these countries. But how come government is not involved there? And we think that government has to drive. Take the athletic championship, the African Athletics Championship that just happened. Okay, that is a commercial event, a prime commercial event, but it was government driven. And did it succeed? No, it didn't. How can you have a Casa Semeya here? How can you have Mary 2 here and the private sector is not involved? Because they didn't want the private sector in. If they got the private sector into the African Athletics Championship, there are many people you ask, they didn't even know that it happened. Okay, so the point I'm making is that, that is one of the recommendations of the Sports Reform Committee, which I headed. As chairman of the Sports Reform Committee, we pushed through last year. Most of the recommendations are being implemented. The trust of the entire 67-page submission to government was that sports in Nigeria should be private sector driven, athlete-centered, with very, relative involvement with government in terms of, enablement, that is, facilities. There are playgrounds all over Lagos, Port Harcourt, wherever. These playgrounds are being taken over by private developers and all that. So government should be able to come in and say, oh, there are 10,000 people here, let's have a football field. There are 20,000 people here, let's have a basketball court. So if they do that and children can leave their homes and go play, then they have provided an enabling environment for it. And then the private sector can come in, and everywhere there is a space, it's a business for a sports resource person to make business. Once you have a space, anybody can set up, call it a football academy, an athletics track academy or something. Every person who is so minded, a former athlete, can always make money. So when they say there's no jobs in Nigeria and they're thinking about agriculture, they're thinking about paying 5,000, sports is the second biggest employer of labor in the world, next to information technology. Sports is the second. Just do a review of what is going on in the world at weekends.
We want to hear the story about the lady. What happened to her?
The Clara thing was targeted. We had, as it was then, a blank check from Unipetrol, now Oando. And she was 13 then, and we assured Oando that in 1 year she will be national champion, and we achieved that. When she finished her WAEC, as they call it then, and she was going to be 15, 16, and we said, okay, she finished, and we said, okay, let's launch her into the circuit. In the first year, we promised the sponsors that she will become 800 in the world minimum. We went to tournaments all over the world, including Zimbabwe, South Africa, Israel, wherever, and we hit 600, 590 in the first year. The next year, we were targeting 300 in the world, and that's how it should go. You should have a standard, a structure, and it goes like that. And the NTA, the NTF then came in and said...
the NTF is the National Tennis Federation.
Yes. And said, oh, this girl is too talented. One man cannot develop her. They have...
the broader structure.
The power, the structure, the reach. And unfortunately, her father fell for it. And 3 months after...
Where is she now?
No, she's doing great. She was a UK citizen, and she was a British citizen. And
she's no longer playing tennis.
No, unfortunately. We're talking about zillion years ago.
Yeah, typical Nigerian story. That's all from Godwin Kienka. Up next on our take, we will be discussing the bleaching culture in Nigeria. But before then, we'll take a short break on The Morning Show.